Hi, and welcome to the very first episode of the Wills, Wealth, and Wisdom podcast. I'm Ouida Jones, and I'm so excited to be here with my friend, legal advisor, and co host, Cathe Evans Williams.
Hello, everyone. It is such a joy to kick off this journey with you. This podcast is all about helping individuals and families take control of their financial futures with clarity, confidence, and a whole lot of purpose. And don't worry, we're going to break it down in a way that leaves you confident to start or update your estate plan.
Each week, we're going to explore the essential intersections of estate planning, wealth building, amen, and life legacy with practical tools, expert interviews, and real life stories that go beyond the paperwork.
That's right. And we'll talk about protecting your assets, honoring your values, and leaving a legacy that includes more than just money because it's also about wisdom.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Protecting your emotional integrity, your mental integrity of not just you, but your family as well.
Amen. So today's episode is going to lay the foundation for everything to come. We're diving into why estate planning matters no matter your age, income, or family situation.
That's right. And we will unpack the risks of not having a plan. We're going to explain the basics of getting started and help you see estate planning as an act of care for yourself and for the people you love.
All right. So let's get into it. Why estate planning matters. Cathe, a lot of people hear the term estate planning and immediately think that's for wealthy people, or I'm not old enough to worry about that. Again, that not old enough people are dropping at every age. But the truth is, estate planning affects us all, regardless of how much money we have or what stage of life we're in.
That's true. That's true. And so, what I would say to that, Ouida, is that estate planning really is about two things.
It is.
What happens to my stuff when I die?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to me if I'm still here but I can't handle my own affairs?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And having stuff doesn't just mean that you have $3 million worth of stuff.
Yep.
It could be that you've worked really hard at your job and you've made, $40,000 a year, and you have stuff that you want to make sure goes to your family.
There it is.
And so having an estate plan will protect your wishes, and it can reduce the family conflict.
Yep.
Right? And then it also can avoid court delays and unnecessary costs. And then also, it can ensure care for your children, whether they're minor children or adult children who will be dependent upon you for the rest of their life.
There it is. There it is. So that answers the question why estate planning is something every adult should consider regardless of wealth. Let's ask this other question, because that really put things into perspective. Not having a plan can create a lot of unintended stress and complications.
Okay.
Let's clear up some of the confusion because estate planning often sounds more intimidating than it really is.
Okay.
What are the most common myths or misconceptions people have about estate planning?
Okay. One, we kind of talked about it, is that it's just for the wealthy.
Yeah.
Right? But that's not the case because we all work hard for our money. And so it's not just for the wealthy. It's for anybody who has anything who wants to make sure that they give it to the people they love. Right? Also, I hear, okay, Cathe, all I need is a will.
Yeah.
And let me say this, that may be true. You may only need a will. Your scenario may mean that a will be just fine for you. But for some people, they might need a transfer on death instrument. For other people, they may need a revocable living trust. Some may even need an irrevocable living trust.
Ooh.
And so it's a lot more to it than just a will.
Yes.
Right? So I've heard that. And I guess I would also say, something else that I hear is, Cathe, I'm bringing my mom in, or I'm bringing my dad in for their estate plan. Because in their mind, they're thinking that they are too young for an estate plan.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, these people might be 50 or even 60 years old, bringing in their parents who are 70 or 80 years old.
Yeah.
But in real life, a 50-year-old can pass away too.
Boy, I'm telling you, I'm
Right?
going to the funerals of 50-year-olds. So
This is amazing.
It is.
Right?
It is.
And we may need someone to help us, even if it's not for the long term with our business affairs, but maybe we're having a surgery and we're not as mobile as we used to be. Right? And so estate planning is not just for the elderly.
Yes.
It's for us. It's for everybody listening right now.
Amen. Amen. And that's so true. Those myths can really hold people back from taking that first step. But beyond the paperwork, estate planning has a deep impact on the people we leave behind. How does estate planning affect families emotionally and financially after someone passes?
Wow. I mean, in my office, I do consultations for estate planning to begin their plan. And I also meet with the families after the person has passed away. And, of course, I've done probate where, the family members come in and the person who passed away didn't have a plan at all. And so I can tell you firsthand, if there is an estate plan, you are going to allow your family members to be sad, but not confused.
Yes.
If you don't have a plan, not only will they be sad, sometimes they're going to be confused, and that confusion can lead to anger.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you can get to a point where family members don't speak to each other because mama wasn't clear in her transition documents.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And so we don't want that for our family. We want to be able to reduce the stress.
Yep.
Leave them a legacy,
Yep.
not drama.
Yep.
And so we don't want to, give them a position where they are going to have family disputes over money or property. And we also don't want a position where the family members are going to reach out and hire attorneys who are going to deplete the family legacy.
Ooh,
Now,
yes.
I'm not saying, because I'm an attorney and I get it. And we do get paid first.
Right.
Okay? But listen, I'm okay with that.
Yep.
But if you can prevent that from occurring,
Yeah.
if you can say, hey, this is the plan, I want to make sure my children benefit from every cent that I have.
Yep.
Putting together a plan will save money on legal fees.
And it's important to have a good attorney who's fair.
It's true. It's true. And then one more thing I'll say. In the event that you are in the position to have a lot of money, creating an estate plan can also help you eliminate some of the taxes that your estate may have to pay when you pass away.
And see, that's a good, because my next question, that's such a powerful reminder.
All right.
Estate planning really is about protecting the wishes of your loved ones, no matter your income level. I mean, like you said, having a lot of money, you can save money. But let's take it a step further. For those who still think they can put it off or don't need a plan at all, let's talk about the flip side of not having a plan. What are the risks of not having an estate plan in place?
Well, I will say this. If you don't have an estate plan in place, that doesn't mean a plan isn't in place.
Right.
The state has a plan for you.
Yeah.
And so you might not like that plan.
Yeah.
That's called in Illinois the law of intestate succession.
Ooh.
If you die without a succession plan. And so if you don't want to be faced with whatever the state says, then you create a plan. Another thing is, if you don't have a plan, your family may wind up in probate court.
Ooh.
And if
That's a
any
bad
listener
word.
understands what probate court is about, you know what I'm saying. It is a long process. It is a process where you are not in control of it. There are rules and statutes and, court appearances and money that has to be paid for surety bonds. And so the probate process can be time consuming and expensive. And then another thing is, if you don't have an estate plan, you're going to miss the opportunity to name a guardian that you want for your children.
Yeah.
You're also going to miss the opportunity to name someone who will be a fiduciary for you. Right? So remember I said estate planning is two things. What happens to your stuff when you die, and then what happens to me if I'm still here but I can't handle my own affairs.
Yeah.
If I don't put my estate plan in place, I might not have the person making decisions for me that I trust.
Oh my God, that's true. And I'm a real estate broker, and I've had two people who've had family members die and have to go through that probate process, and they walked away from it because it was so expensive emotionally and financially, and they had already invested money in it. So that probate stress is real. The emotional weight is real.
Yes, it is.
And having a plan can truly make that time easier for loved ones. So for someone ready to get started, they might be wondering what's actually involved. What basic documents should be included in a starter, quote unquote, estate plan?
Okay, really, really good question, and I will say it depends.
Yeah.
Right. One of the
Makes
things
sense.
in law school, everything was an exception. Right. It always depends. But what we find out in real life is that every person is different from another person. every family is different from another family.
Yeah.
And so it really depends. But, if we're just going to break it down and, hey, if you take anything away from this, one of the things that you definitely need is either a will or a living trust or a transfer on death instrument.
Yeah,
right? That's
estate. Makes
that
sense.
for the real estate, right?
Yeah.
And then also you need something that is going to tell you who's going to get the personal property. Right. So again, that could be a will or a living trust.
Yeah.
And then when you're talking about who can help me make my decisions if I can't do that, those are powers of attorneys.
Yes.
Right. So power of attorney for health care and power of attorney for property. And then here's one more thing, and this is for free. You need to make sure that you have named a beneficiary on all of your cash accounts.
Makes sense.
Right? So your bank accounts, your investment accounts, your life insurance policies, you want to make sure that you have named a current beneficiary, not one, that you had down there 10 years ago and maybe it was your now ex-spouse, right? You want to update that stuff,
Baby mama,
just update that stuff, right?
For real.
But you also want to make sure that you have named a successor beneficiary.
Yeah.
Because the person that you name first might pass away before you do. So you always want to think in levels of two. Okay?
That's true. That's very true. And I was thinking of that recently, just as you were talking about it.
Yeah.
So you want to have somebody else, just in case that person passed.
Right.
So.
Right.
All right. Well, that's a helpful checklist. A really helpful checklist. Estate planning isn't a one and done thing. I think we've kind of come to that conclusion in this short time. Life happens. Families grow. I mean, like I said, if I had a nickel for every, person who had an uncle who was younger than him, or in my family, I'd probably be rich. But circumstances change, long story short. So how often should someone update or review their estate plan?
Another great question. Typically I will say every 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Right? Every 3 to 5 years, you just want to pull it out, take a look at it, make sure that the people that you put in these positions to make decisions for you, like your executor or your trustee, that they're still who you want to make those decisions for you. They're still alive. They're still of sound mind. You still have the same relationship with them. Also that the children are still in the same position. For example, you can create an estate plan when your children are minors. And then, 5 years later, they're no longer minors, and you may want to put them in different positions. And so every 3 to 5 years is a pretty good, thing to do, or definitely when you have major changes in your life. So if someone has passed away, or if someone got married, or if someone has a child, or if someone gets divorced, right?
Yeah.
So those major times, major life decisions, then you want to kind of revisit it.
Okay, that makes sense. 3 to 5 years, major life changes.
Yep.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Regular reviews can really keep things aligned with your goals, it sounds like. So for someone who's just starting to think about all of this, hopefully as a result of this webcast and podcast,
all right,
and maybe feels a little bit overwhelmed, what advice would you give someone just beginning to think about estate planning?
Oh, first I'll say good for you.
Amen.
Good for you for thinking about estate planning, because all too often we don't do that, right? So good for you. Second, keep up the momentum. Do something about it. Don't just say, man, I know I need an estate plan.
Tomorrow, huh?
Right. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Actually, you know what? Pick up the phone and call an attorney and schedule a consultation.
Yeah.
Hey, do that. So that you now have the momentum to actually create your plan. And even if you don't know if you want a will or a trust or transfer on death deed, even if you're not sure about what this stuff means, pick up the phone, call the attorney, schedule the consultation, and listen to what they have to say, so that you become more informed. And once you become more informed, you've heard, once you know better, you do better.
Amen.
Right. Once you become more informed, you're able to make better decisions for you and your family.
There you go.
So I would say, think about it, move on it, pick up the phone, and do what needs to be done to create the plan for you and your family.
Amen.
All
Amen.
right.
And on that, we are going to close. Well, thanks so much for joining us in our very first episode of the Wills, Wealth, and Wisdom podcast.
Woohoo!
We hope today's conversation helped clarify the importance of estate planning and reminded you that it's not about how much you have, but about protecting what matters most: your loved ones, your values, and your peace of mind.
No, that's true. I mean, that's true, absolutely. And whether you're single, married, just starting out, or planning for retirement, estate planning is essential because life is unpredictable and preparation is one of the greatest gifts you can give your family.
If you haven't started your plan yet, let today be the day you take that first step. Start a conversation with someone you trust, as Cathe mentioned earlier, or reach out to a qualified professional who can guide you through the process.
That's right. And listen, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found today's conversation helpful, share it with a friend or loved one who might benefit too.
Alrighty, well, until next time, take care and plan with purpose.
Your hosts today were Ouida Jones, Illinois licensed realtor with Home Smart Realty Group of Orland Park. You can reach her at ojones.realtor@gmail.com.
And Cathe Evans, managing attorney at the Evans Williams Law Group. You can learn more about her at her website, tewlg.com. Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Amen.